Too much in one space, too many versions of yourself, and nowhere to put all of them. Here's the lie. That identity should be simple. That it should fit into something already decided. That if you live in between, you're incomplete. The questions in this film were shaped by ideas from Gloria Anzaldo's chapter, Borderlands La Frontera, The New Mestiza, and the article by Ana Rios Rojas and Mark Stren on identity, belonging, and culture negotiation within shared social spaces. Their work helped shape this documentary's focus on what it means to live between cultures, between expectations, between definitions that never fully fit.
What's your name?
My name, Kevin Moreno.
My name is Oscar Alvarez.
My name is Richard Ariano, and I would describe myself as Mexican American or Chicano.
I identify as Hispanic Salvadorian, Vietnamese, and English, like Caucasian.
I identify as Chicano.
Do you change how you speak, act, or dress depending on who you're around on campus or in public spaces?
I would definitely say, maybe not specifically like between like public spaces and a campus, but more just like depending on the group I'm in. I would say I change the way I speak. I would say I'm probably a little bit more like higher pitched, like flamboyant if I'm more around girls, and then it changes when I'm around like more in a male group. It becomes more lower. The way I dress, I try to dress more how I am like all the time.
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of code switching that I have to do, and I've had to not endure, but like kind of go through in order for me to kind of like, yeah, definitely. There's just been a lot of code switching that I've had to do. You know, whether it's been at school, me talking to my friends right there, which I am genuine, but let's say I have to talk to like a faculty member, or even have to, get into an important meeting with somebody that may be higher up that is not Hispanic. Let's say they are white. I may have to. I've adapted to having to talk in a certain way.
So does it ever feel like you're performing what's quote unquote acceptable?
There are unspoken rules, but they exist because they're passed down from generation to generation, kind of like your parents teach you what the rules are. And sometimes you just feel it.
So I am what people in my culture would call a no sabo, which means they don't know. And what no sabo means is referring to somebody who has Mexican blood and doesn't speak Spanish. So that's something that I've had to endure my entire life with some of my elders in my family, such as like my tias, my aunts, or just different family members and such. I've never been called that directly by them, but just the tone and the way that I guess certain people in my family act toward me. There are a lot of people in my family that I really don't know who they are. I don't know their character. I'm 23. I've been at multiple events throughout my entire lifetime. That I've shared these events with these people. I don't even know them. I have my great grandpa in my life. I don't even know his story.
That's something that is problematic, because just because you don't know the language doesn't mean you can't learn it, at any point. So I would say that's one of those unspoken things that just needs to not be accepted, but more be embraced, I guess.
Do you think everyone on this campus gets to feel like they belong?
I'd say not, as much as I would love to say yes. Backtracking, so I was a resident assistant for some time, and I dealt with some international students that were a little scared to even go out and do things, and I have friends that are living in the dorms right now that are terrified to go out due to the ongoing political space that we're enduring here, with ICE being ramped up in this country. And I will say too, there are sometimes some people that do visit the campus that voice out opinions that you do know that the vast majority of the people here would not agree with, I would just consider that, I would, for lack of better terms, rage baiting, you know? There's a lot of people that come here to this campus just to solely do that, and those people profit off of the students here on this campus. Not to say that you're not allowed to voice your opinion, but I do believe there's a time and place, and a lot of people don't feel safe walking around with those people about, you know? So, yeah.
Would you say that people have made you feel judged for being either too ethnic, or would you say for not being ethnic enough?
Definitely not ethnic enough.
For some reason, when it comes to activism, for some people it turns into a competition of, oh, I'm more of an activist than you are, you know? And so people start to say, oh, well, are you Mexican enough to have this conversation, you know? And so obviously people that were born and raised in Mexico feel like they have the authority to speak over others on matters that have to do with indigenous cultures. But I think as long as you're trying to provide a benefit or trying to increase just the level of information for others to access, it's already helping. You know, you don't need to shun others just because they're not indigenous enough.
I would say it's more in my family that this happens. Like, yeah, they're making jokes, but at the same time, it's in all like underlying seriousness. I can't recall like a specific time, like with like being on campus or just in public or workspace, but there's definitely that energy that's there, and I can feel it and notice it. So that's very impactful, like mentally and everything, and it's another reason why it takes me away from that being Hispanic and Asian, because I feel like I'm not as ethnic as some other people are, and it makes me feel like I shouldn't even bring it up in the first place.
What do you think would change in how people treat each other if identity labels like race, nationality, or immigration status just didn't exist, if we didn't care so much about it?
I think that's a double-edged sword, because it's almost like the whole "I don't see color" thing when I hear that, because it's important to know that we're not the same. You know, we all have our differences. We all have different ways that we grew up, different traditions, but it's acknowledging those differences that bring people together. You know, it can only help improve communities to acknowledge that we're not all the same. So I think putting importance in those labels is a good thing, but it's just what those labels are used for that is what turns them from good or bad, you know? Some people don't like being labeled anything, which is okay, because there are other people that feel the same way, you know? And so it's important to acknowledge the feelings of others. You know, if someone doesn't like being identified as Mexican, then just say, okay, like I understand. Let me know how you want to be identified as, you know? Because just like that person, there's gonna be hundreds of more, if not thousands of more people that feel the same way.
Do you think society has the right to define how people should identify?
My answer is fairly straightforward. Like, I don't care what Nancy from Five Houses Down says about me. I don't know you, so I don't know you. Like, mind your business, you know?
If you could break those rules, what would change?
If I could break those rules of judging,
when it comes to society having the right to define how people should identify, if you could break those rules where it's such a big deal to politicians, to a certain generation, you know, what would change?
if I were to break those rules, honestly, being realistic, it wouldn't change anything, you know? As sad as it is to say, people are just way too stubborn in this day and age to even have an open mind and even kind of consider what people are feeling.
What do you think would change in how people treat each other if identity labels like race, nationality, or immigration status just didn't exist, if we didn't care so much about it?
I think that's a double-edged sword, because it's almost like the whole "I don't see color" thing when I hear that, because it's important to know that we're not the same. You know, we all have our differences. We all have different ways that we grew up, different traditions, but it's acknowledging those differences that bring people together. You know, it can only help improve communities to acknowledge that we're not all the same. So I think putting importance in those labels is a good thing, but it's just what those labels are used for that is what turns them from good or bad, you know? Some people don't like being labeled anything, which is okay, because there are other people that feel the same way, you know? And so it's important to acknowledge the feelings of others. You know, if someone doesn't like being identified as Mexican, then just say, okay, like I understand. Let me know how you want to be identified as, you know? Because just like that person, there's going to be hundreds of more, if not thousands of more people that feel the same way.
We're all mutts. So when society points a finger at you for existing, bite.